Joining us now, Texas Congressman Chip Roy from the great Republic of Texas, and he joins us now. He's been talking about this a bit. I'm also going to talk to you about the Supreme Court stuff, but I'm going to start with this. Always good to see you, Congressman. As you know, we still explain this to me. How is that? And I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. How is it that the CDC is able to say it's not an emergency enough anymore to have Title 42, but yet Biden can still use these emergency powers for all of this other stuff? I mean, I say this kind of, facetiously, but I mean, I'm kind of wondering, is there some magic at the border that makes everything less contagious there?
Well, it's a great question. Good to be on as always, Dan. I hope you and Chris and the whole family are doing well. Yeah, look, this is all political. It's been political from the very beginning. Title 42 exists in our health codes to stop anybody coming across the border who might have communicable diseases, not just COVID.
Yeah,
now, yes, the Trump administration stepped up enforcement, as you would expect, on the last year of his administration in order to deal with the rush at our border, in order to protect us, particularly during a pandemic. But you rightly point out that this administration is still requiring masks on airplanes, still requiring, mandatory vaccines. The president today is extending authority on student loans. Nancy Pelosi is still extending proxy voting, which is, unlawful, silly, and frankly, a bunch of members of Congress lying. But look, here's the deal. The American people need to understand that this Title 42 issue is just another enforcement tool that Secretary Mayorkas and the president and the entire administration refuse to use. They're not interested in using any of the tools at their disposal. Migrant protection protocols are under a federal judge's order. We have federal laws on the books like the Secure Fence Act blatantly be ignored. But they don't have any interest in actually enforcing the law. And here's the consequence. You've heard it and you put people on. 8,000 people a day now at our border. And we're turning away about half of them right now under Title 42. But when Title 42 goes away, the half being turned away will no longer be turned away. The numbers will go up. And just last night, our friend Brandon Judd, whom you know and you've talked to, Brandon said those numbers could swell to 15 to 18,000. So do the math. If we even only have 10,000 a day, 300-something thousand a month, and we're not turning any of them away, that's well over 3 million people coming across our country, not counting the known gotaways, which last year was 500,000. We've already had almost 600,000, about 300 to 400,000 known gotaways this fiscal year. That's what's happening. And we're getting hurt in Texas, as you know.
And there's really ultimately, I'm at a loss to suggest what could even be done to mitigate this, because really it's all this is federal up. If anybody decides to do anything locally or state based, then you see DHS come in DOJ come in and threaten to sue everybody. So from what I understand, this was like the last really force multiplier, for the lack of a better way to put it, that Border Patrol had to kind of control some of this.
Well, it is. And that's because, as I said, they refuse to enforce the laws of the United States. Look, there are only two barriers between us and total chaos and destruction of our ranches, livestock getting out, children getting abused, cartels getting empowered, fentanyl pouring into our schools, Americans dying, all of the consequences of a wide open border, lack of sovereignty. All of that can only really be stopped right now, one of, I guess, really three ways. Number one, we have a discharge petition on the floor of the House of Representatives that has 210 signatures. Republicans, all Republicans except for, I think, Adam Kinzinger. You can insert your commentary there.
He'll be out soon.
And then no Democrat. So where is Henry Cuellar? Where are some of my friends that I've worked with before, like Abigail Spanberger, Dean Phillips, or any of the other Democrats who try to run as moderates? Where are they in saying that they'll sign a discharge petition? And what does that mean, Dana?
Not to interrupt you, Congressman, but that really shocks me what you say about Cuellar, because he's been very vocal. Did he just get scared by the more progressive members of his party?
Well, Henry's in a tough race down there, and I like Henry and he's a friend, but he should sign this discharge petition. Look, the establishment in Washington doesn't like to sign discharge petitions because this is the way it works for your audience. The speaker sets the agenda, and that means the speaker decides what comes up on the floor, but there's one way around that. 218 signatures on a discharge petition to move a bill means we can move a bill on the floor.
Okay.
So we need 6, 7, 8 Democrats to join us to get up to 218 signatures. And so the media should ask every Democrat, why won't you sign this discharge petition? So that's number one. Number two, and we filed that discharge petition a year ago, Dana. I filed the discharge petition, Yvette Harrell's bill to require Title 42. We did it a year ago because we knew what was coming. And, a lot of people have been quiet over the last year, including on our side of the aisle, about what was coming. Number two, September 30th, the government funding runs out. Well, we've got now 5.5 months, and we should fight and say, do not fund a government that refuses to secure the border. Let's have that fight. Yeah. Republicans will run away from that, and they'll say, oh, don't do a shutdown fight before an election, and they'll hand-wring. Look, stop funding government that is not doing its job and that is taking away your tyranny. You're funding the government that's targeting DOJ, targeting parents who go to a school board and complain, and you're funding a DHS that refuses to secure the border. Don't do that. The third way to try to go after this is Texas. And frankly, we need to do more than we're doing. Now, look, Governor Abbott has done a lot in terms of DPS, and there's $3 billion of funding, and we've got DPS guys down there helping. We're building some fence. That's all good. But it's slow, and it's not for the times. The times dictate that we need to actually go down there and do our own work as Texans to secure the border under the Constitution of the United States. We're being invaded, and we should treat it as such.
Yeah, we're talking with Congressman Chip Roy, isn't there some kind of way to say it, I mean, that many people, that kind of a mess, that's like a state of emergency in a way. I mean, couldn't the governor be able to declare something like that, and then through those powers, I'm not quite sure what that grants him, but use, National Guard, something, Texas Rangers, something to help control it?
Well, we've certainly got DPS down there, and they're helping, and I do not want to be misinterpreted that the guy DPS and McGraw who runs it, he's a friend, and Governor Abbott's a friend, and they're doing a lot. Right. I would just say that it's kind of reactive. And at some point here, you got to look at this, what you just said. It's an emergency. Our ranches, livestock, people, drugs, cartels, danger, the rape trees, the body trailers down in South Texas. We need to stop that. And we need to stop it now because we're being invaded. And we are being invaded in the sense that we've got dangerous cartels and dangerous narcotics and dangers to Texans. And under Article 4 in the Constitution, we have the ability to say, look, we're being invaded. Let's stand up. And let's do our part as Texans, say, no, you're not coming into Texas. We're stopping you. That's a big statement, and I get that that's big, but the times call for it. And that's what I'm suggesting is that Texas needs to stand up, but I'm trying to do what I can here, moving the Title 42 discharge petition, and I'm going to pick a funding fight between now and September about funding a government that refuses to secure the border.
There you go. That's and I think that makes a lot of sense. I know Republicans get really scared about that, but that's a really good, it's a leverage tool. And honestly, I think that the shellacking is going to be so great this midterm, that's not going to do anything to reduce that momentum. I want to switch gears and ask you about SCOTUS while we have you for the remainder of this segment. Talking with Congressman Chip Roy, the Great Republic of Texas. Ketanji Brown Jackson, I'm not quite sure how we can even be considering a nominee to the highest court in the land when you have someone who can't even define what a woman is, considering that her refusal to do so would upend I don't know how many years of jurisprudence, sexual discrimination. What does that mean if Title IX comes before the Supreme Court? I mean, you have the 19th Amendment lists sex discrimination as a prohibited basis for adjudicating this stuff. How is she going to deal with these cases when she's already showing that she's willing to be influenced by the super far left rage mob? And I know there's other issues, the natural rights, the restorative justice. That to me seems like one of the easiest things for conservatives to argue. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, as you know, I served as a lawyer on the Senate Judiciary Committee. I've been around this a long time. I worked on the nominations of Roberts, Alito, when we had Harriet Myers, and we took issue with her not being fully qualified, and we got Sam Alito instead, which I think was the right outcome. This is what Republicans should have done here. They should have fought. Credit to the Judiciary Committee Republicans for holding together to say no and sending it to the floor with a split vote. But when you have Susan Collins, who, by the way, didn't vote for Amy Coney Barrett, so she voted against Amy Coney Barrett, and it says she's going to vote for Ketanji Brown Jackson. You got Mitt Romney yesterday saying going to vote for her. You've got Murkowski from Alaska doing it. These are two bright red states and then Maine, and these guys are voting for a radical leftist nominee who is terrible on these child porn sentences, who cannot say that we have natural rights, who cannot define woman, who has a history of elevating critical race theory. She is a radical leftist activist who is going to take the court to a turn. And let me just tell you out there, the Mitt Romneys of the world and so forth, some Americans are going to be charged with hate crimes or being targeted and facing jail time, like that member of parliament in Finland who's facing jail time for simply quoting Romans. about lesbian and gay issues, that's going to happen in the United States. And a radical leftist like Brown Jackson is going to be determining your fate or the fate of a loved one of yours because of people like Mitt Romney, Susan Collins, and Lisa Murkowski. Yes, I'm angry at Republicans. Democrats never do this. Republicans just roll over and say, okay, she's qualified. No, she's not. She doesn't believe in natural rights or the Constitution. She can't define woman. She's not qualified. She should be roundly opposed.
And to your point, and talking with Congressman Chip Roy, last point here, I thought it was interesting during the questioning, and I thought this was smart. There were a lot of instances brought up that were pitting Brown Jackson against, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and some of her decisions like U.S. v. Virginia, and really showing how different that has been from one generation to this generation. I mean, her liberal ideology is one thing, but the fact that she actually refuses to qualify herself with basic acknowledgement of science and established law, that is the thing that disqualifies her. Last word from you, Congressman.
No, that's exactly right. I mean, look, Republicans who are serving in Congress need to understand what's at stake. And they hide behind things like some sort of niceties and that she's qualified or whatever. That's absurd. You are not qualified to serve on the highest court in the land, frankly, any court, if you can't define woman. You're not qualified to serve on a court if you can't accept that there are natural rights. That's a big deal. We kind of just brushed that aside. She literally said, I can't say whether there are natural rights. It's fundamental to being an American. It's what the Declaration of Independence is based upon, and the Constitution flows from the Declaration. It is who we are as Americans. This is actually what I'm getting at with Texas and our right as Texans to defend ourselves and our communities. These are God-given rights. These do not flow from some powers that be. And that's my message to Governor Abbott and everybody in Texas, the Texas legislature. You're being attacked and you're just sitting there and you're saying, oh, we're going to do some criminal trespass and we'll build some fence. But what are you doing to actually protect ranchers, to protect Texan kids at school dying from Xanax laced with fentanyl, or the migrants who are getting raped in stash houses in your state, along I-10, along I-35? Stop it. Stand up and stand up for natural rights. Let's stand up for why this country was created. That's what we're called to do.
Amen to that. Congressman Chip Roy, well said. Love the passion and the truth, because it is true. Glad to see someone speak with reason and recognize science, for the love. I mean, it's 2022. Good to see you as always, Congressman. Thanks so much.
You too, Dana. God bless you.
Soon. You too.